All right, welcome everyone. We're excited to have you join us today for this interesting discussion on what we're calling marketplaces. I love the term marketplace. I think it's a really smart way to look at the world and at what these things are versus it's classifieds or it's an inventory site. No, it's a marketplace and if as I'm sure we'll get into this, as dealers they can tap into more of those marketplaces, they're gonna be more successful, and there are a lot of them out there. So this is gonna be fun. I'm excited. Um, Thanks for joining us, you two.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, same. Really excited to have this opportunity. So thank you.
Hey, that's what we do. We're just talking a little bit before about the ever changing landscape with automotive retail, and it just goes back and forth. So well, welcome everyone. Let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bart Wilson. I'm going to be moderating this thing, but I'm not going to be doing a lot of the talking. But I am going to do two things real quick, so that we can get everything set up right, and then I'm going to turn the time over to Chip. So we're doing this webinar on Zoom. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, if you just kind of hover over your screen at the bottom, you will see that there is going to be some icons. One of them is chat. We're going to be using chat heavy for this webinar. If you want to ask questions, I'll be monitoring both Q&A and chat. But just know that we would love contributing feedback and to get that going. In addition, anybody who registered for this broadcast, I know it's a Friday, it's a Thursday, it's a busy time. As you're going through this, I will be sending the recording out. So if you're working a deal, or you had somebody come into your office, or you want to share it with other people on your staff, we'll definitely make sure that you get a copy of that. So that's basically it for me. I'm going to turn the time over to Chip and let Chip introduce himself, and let's get this thing kicked off.
Great. Thanks for that introduction. And thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to kind of just cover off on a brief peek into what the growing Recommerce marketplace looks like and some insights that we've kind of garnered over the last couple years that really showcase, why marketplaces matter and why using a marketplace can help you attract additional buyers as consumer preferences and buying preferences shift and evolve. But before we do that, I want to just pause for a quick second, introduce myself. I'm Chip Kazmarowski. I am a manager over at OfferUp in our autos vertical. I've got Matt McKinney, who's going to join us here today as well. He heads up and manages a lot of our marketing efforts across multiple verticals in which we operate in. And really, before we get into the meat of the content, I want to just call out two quick things. We'll be talking about marketplaces in general, but I'll just call out OfferUp as a marketplace. And if you don't already have OfferUp as an app on your phone, it might be worth downloading just so that you've got an opportunity to kind of follow along, see how an marketplace operates, and then also have OfferUp on your phone. The other thing that I just wanted to cover off on, and Bart just mentioned this beforehand, would love this to be as interactive as possible. If you've got questions as we are going through the presentation and we don't get into some of the details, stop us, ask a question, we'll pause, we'll dive into it and try to get you an answer that makes sense. All right, so kind of what we're going to cover off on today is really talking through some of the reasons why consumers and buyers are starting to leverage marketplaces in their Recommerce efforts, why selling matters just as much as buying. And then as we kind of go through the presentation today, you'll hopefully get a few recommendations along the way that you can start to implement within your own businesses. So again, some of you are familiar with what marketplaces are and specifically what horizontal marketplaces are. So I won't read the definition as to kind of how we think about it, but I do want to just take a second to kind of dig into what it is we're actually talking about when we're talking about a Recommerce marketplace. We're talking about any number of online shopping sites that offer merchandise products, whatever it may be, across a broad spectrum of product categories in both like the new and used segment. The horizontal marketplace itself is a little bit different than what you probably are familiar with it, which is like a vertical marketplace. And again, within this industry specifically, there are a lot of examples of vertical agnostic marketplaces. So think about it from the traditional sites that you probably use each and every single day, which is Car Gurus, AutoTrader, Cars.com, that really speak to what a consumer is doing within one specific lane. But a horizontal marketplace itself is going to be essentially the equivalent of walking into your 1980s style shopping mall. You walk in thinking that you're going to go to the Gap, buy a sweatshirt, and you end up in Radio Shack or Same Goody. And yes, I'm dating myself because I'm talking about stores that no longer exist here. But wanted to kind of just set the stage around what it is we think about from a marketplace standpoint, and then really starting to get into the recommerce element here. So why should you care, right? The vertical listing sites like Car Gurus, AutoTrader, they work, right? They work to help drive, businesses and buyers to your locations. And it is something that shoppers oftentimes leverage. The end market shopper does use these verticals when they are, in the moment needing to shop for a specific car, item, whatever it may be. But unless you're my twin 17-year-old nephews who are car obsessed, oftentimes, the individual who is exploring their journey around, their purchase are using those vertical levers just during very limited periods of time. The average, buying consumer right now, will leverage, vertical agnostic websites in a very finite window. And that is, just during their car buying journey. Right now, I think we had some data that we pulled from Cox Automotive that showcases and depicts that the average shopper's journey starts and ends kind of like within a 13-hour period of time from when they do all of their researching to completing their car buying journey. Those same consumers are spending 13 hours a week shopping on Amazon, on Facebook Marketplace, on OfferUp, Craigslist, and they're buying things like plates, skateboards. But as they are doing so, they are starting to see other things that might pique their interest. You may be looking for a golf cart, but you may be getting an ad for a car. And so the shopping dynamic is shifting, and the way in which people are digesting information is shifting along with it. So, Recommerce itself has been on the rise in terms of how people are starting to think through their own purchase pattern. So we've seen growth, over the balance of really the last decade, but we've seen some exponential growth and some rises, from a consumer shopping pattern standpoint, even expedited, significantly post-pandemic and really during the pandemic. And that's driven by a lot of different, reasons and rationale. The shortage of supplies, chip shortages, the willingness to not actually get out and go visit something themselves has changed the behavior of the average shopper. And we are expecting this whole industry from a recommerce standpoint to grow really over the balance of the next 3 to 4 years to an almost $300 billion industry. So not focusing in on folks who are looking for deals and other ways in which they can save their own time and or finances may be a miss. And so we're going to start diving into what that might look like a little bit more so, and then here in just a little bit, Matt will take us through some of the auto specific details that we have in front of you.
Hey, Chip, can you take a second and define recommerce? I mean, it's a term that I think I know what it means, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, recommerce at the very base level is, the buying and selling of used goods, right? So that is something that, and great question, and thanks for pausing to talk about that. We're talking about Recommerce because it's becoming more of an industry trend, but at the heart of it is people are looking to gain access to whatever item they're shopping for in the most financially judicious manner. And so sometimes they are looking for those used goods because those things are oftentimes cheaper, but then also still at a very high quality. And so again, this whole Recommerce idea has started to evolve and shift and has started to lose some of its negative connotation around what people are willing to use their funding for to shop and allocate their funds.
Okay.
All right, so not surprising that we've got a large number of individuals across the United States, leveraging and using Recommerce, and primarily shopping for Recommerce online. They're doing this as they browse social media. They're doing this as inflation has grown, as making and saving money has become a lot bigger focus for individuals. And so it is driven people to shop a little bit differently. I had mentioned just a little bit ago that some of the vertical agnostic shopping is evolving, right? And the amount of time people are starting to spend on Recommerce sites like OfferUp has grown equal to that of your average social media, right? People are spending about 30 minutes a day scrolling and looking through Recommerce sites like they are scrolling and looking through what their friends are doing across the company or across the country right now. So 63% of shoppers are checking, for secondhand options before buying. So they're being a lot more pragmatic and thoughtful about their own purchase journey. They're looking for deals, and it's a way for folks to, potentially earn passive incomes in a way in which they've never really thought for before. I know I've, kind of dipped my toes into what we call the whole Recommerce element, where I've got stuff in my house that I'm trying to get rid of, and I'd rather just get rid of it. But if it comes with some financing, behind it, all the much better. But we are seeing that pattern shift and evolve within the consumer purchase patterns. And then again, this is not surprising at all. As advertisers, as we are looking for the attention of the buyers out in the marketplace and really going after that golden range, people who are in their prime earning years, that 31 to 55, we are seeing an increased usage of marketplace as a primary way in which folks are searching for and ultimately buying, products that they are interested in. 50% of folks who are on these platforms today fall within that range. And again, it's changing the dynamic of how historically people have bought and sold goods themselves. And then looking at those buyers in general right now, those who are really starting to leverage the technology, really starting to leverage, these horizontal marketplaces. I know when I first came across this data, I was a little surprised at how diverse it was in terms of like who is actively searching for goods that are used, lightly used, and or even new. For that standpoint, but it is such a broad spectrum of individuals who are using this. But it is also surprising to me, or was it at first, that it is not people who are cash strapped for the most part. Like we are seeing such a diversity within people who are leveraging this Recommerce industry right now. Where again, if you kind of break it down to some of the nuts and bolts of it, folks who have healthy incomes, who are looking for not the cheapest good on the block, but those folks who still want quality. For an example here, the average person leveraging some of these online marketplaces are looking for vehicles that are between that $30,000 and $50,000 range. It's not just people who are looking for the cheapest option for their 16-year-old daughter or son and want to stick to that $15,000 range. These are people who are looking for quality along the way, and it's just a part of their journey, right? Shopping new and used and trying to find out what is going to be best for them for the product in which they ultimately get to. And so kind of bringing it back home and using OfferUp as an example towards what the marketplaces look like specific to an autos vertical. Obviously, OfferUp is a horizontal marketplace. You're going to see things from beds to refrigerators to golf carts. And then I think I've mentioned beforehand, autos, which is one of the bigger and busiest categories we have within our own marketplace. And as we've evolved and gotten to know our own consumer and customer, we do see that the OfferUp car shopper is looking to buy a car within 90 days, right? So having 11 million active viewers within that autos vertical space, creating about 7.2 million conversations on a monthly basis, we get the chance to know that consumer quite a bit. And so while the majority are looking to buy in 90 days, we know 35% are really looking to leverage and make a purchase within a week, right? And so think about what we started the conversation with some of those vertical agnostic, those singular lanes that we had, the auto traders, the car gurus. This works in conjunction with that, where you've got people who are passively shopping for something, but they are getting inundated with ads in cars along the way. Again, going back to what I had just said before, high income earners are really starting to leverage Recommerce spaces, and they are shopping these online marketplaces like they are shopping your local neighborhoods, right? Because these online marketplaces are designed by nature to be an extension of your local marketplace. They are individuals who are looking to dive in and invest within their community. And this, again, is just an extension of that. And then again, just to kind of highlight, the impact that these online marketplaces can have within this own space within OfferUp. 1 out of 10 vehicles nationwide are sold through OfferUp right now. So again, as we've grown and as we've had more and more dealers leverage the platform, more and more private sellers leverage the platform, we are starting to see this being a primary driver for how people are shopping for their next vehicle. So I'll pause there. I'm going to turn it over to Matt, actually, as he kind of takes us through, the back half of this presentation, but certainly willing to dive in, answer questions as we kind of got to this point.
I don't want to get too far ahead of things, Matt. And if you're going to talk about this, I apologize. But it seems to me that I've seen a lot of this data too, and I think it's attributed to the fact that used vehicles are selling very quickly because the individual is shopping a specific vehicle, not a model, where there may be other options on a lot, which may take a little longer for them to work through. But it seems to me that these different marketplaces would require a kind of a nuanced process to be able to execute on. If you know that certain buyer behaviors are a certain way on Facebook Marketplace versus an OfferUp Marketplace versus a Cars.com Marketplace, you can better improve and increase, some of the transactional numbers that you have. So I don't know. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, hey Bart, thanks, and Chip, thanks for the handoff there. To that question, that's definitely something we're going to talk about here in the next 2 slides. Price comparing and looking at specific models, and then being able to go and look at competing products or competitive offers around that is something that marketplaces really drive, and that's something that users have shown a very strong inclination to use. Right, they really actually like that particular feature, right? Because they can say, hey, I've got this model. I can look at similar models. I can look at the same model. I can compare to my heart's delight. And in fact, one of the data points we share in here is, on average, what we see is when there's a car purchase, on average, they've looked at 8 other vehicles at the same time. as they go through that. So they're always looking and they're always kind of shopping around. So what I want to do here is kind of go a little bit further down, right? So we've got pretty wide. We've talked about broad reach. We've talked about the marketplace. Kind of talked about the shift in behavior. Like more users are now considering, Recommerce as an opportunity. In fact, 81% of those users are, they'll consider new or used. It doesn't really matter anymore. It's values driven. But what we wanted to do with that is say, of the 11 million shoppers we get in our cars and trucks category in any given month, who are these people? What do they do? What do they like? Where do they shop? And most critically, like, what are their preferences, right? Because as a dealer on the platform, we want to be able to educate you what type of experience, our users are expecting to have, right? So when they come and engage with you, you've got a kind of a lead opportunity to get in there and give them what they want and interact with the way that they want to go ahead and have that experience. So I don't think any surprise here. Like when you look at this, what users told us about car shopping, there is of course a heavy leaning towards Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and of course OfferUp, right? We're surveying and engaging with OfferUp users. The thing that you see here again is it's about shopping, it's about researching. It isn't just one particular thing, right? People are doing multiple things, and they're, again, Bart, to your question, they view research now as part of the comparison shopping, right? Like research and comparing different models, pricing, et cetera, is now a fundamental part of that experience, right? They want to be able to say, I've got a car and now I want to go look at 8 other cars at the same time. The other part that's really important here, and to go back to Chip's comments about the marketplace, I kind of, I asked for if anybody shopped at Costco, kind of the Costco effect. Users have a very strong inclination to have a similar or same experience across how they shop across different product categories, right? So what we've seen at OfferUp as an example, like a lot of our users, there's very strong preference to the shopping experience, right? 50% of our users have either previously bought or sold a car on OfferUp. And in fact, what we do is, our users are using the app 19 times a month. They're shopping in tools, they're shopping in clothing, and most importantly, they're shopping for cars. Again, 11 million viewers in any given month is a pretty healthy volume. In addition to that, and I think this is no surprise to anybody here, and as we talk to dealers, pictures, descriptions, video walkthroughs, those are key components. But more importantly, the ability to price compare, right? Like that is a driver of any kind of opportunity as we look at that. Do you want to go ahead and any questions on that? I think it's kind of just a high level purview on that. But
no, I'm just amazed that as many people are shopping on Craigslist as you. I haven't used Craigslist in years, and I'm amazed it's that high on the list.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah, I think they're, what I would say to that, compared to previous years that we run the car buyer survey, they are losing market share. It is going down. And Facebook Marketplace continues to kind of have hiccups. Again, a lot of the feedback we get is while there is a lot of opportunities there, lots of kind of negative outcomes, right, that happen to that. Again, with OfferUp, there's we place a lot of effort around trying to offer like a verified experience, really cut down on like scam opportunities, things like that. So really focus on a kind of like trust and safety, security, brand opportunities, and building around that. And I think that's part of the reason you see this really strong kind of like leaning towards OfferUp as a opportunity and a place to buy cars as we do that. So let's go a little further down. So this is telling us a little bit about car shopping. Now I want to give a slightly different view on the next slide, which is, again, what are they doing when they're purchasing a vehicle, right? So of the users who are coming in, again, you're talking hundreds of thousands of cars every single month, right? So we're getting a lot of data back. We're learning a lot about what's important to people when they're purchasing a car. As Chip mentioned, right, lots of people are looking to buy within the next 90 days, 35% within the next 7 days. 78% of the vehicles purchased on OfferUp are within 80 miles of a user's location. And purchasing from a verified dealer is a key decision consideration. So this kind of goes back to what I was mentioning on the previous slide about offering kind of a verified experience, right? So giving the buyers the reassurance, right, that they're working with a verified dealer. This is a trusted organization. This is somebody who's been identified as a safe place to purchase a vehicle. And so that's a very important consideration as we look at that. The two other things I would just call out here, number one very significant change, and this is something I don't think it comes as a surprise, but users do expect real-time responses when engaging with you. So what that actually means is the feedback we get from our buyers and from our users is they expect a response within 5 minutes of their question. The reason why that is because by the time they're asking you a question, they're 80% through their purchasing journey. They now have a specific question that they want to know about that either is kind of the make or break opportunity. And if we miss it, those buyers will go somewhere else. So it's a very kind of like a real-time opportunity to capture the lead, capture the potential conversion. If we miss it, they're very likely to go somewhere else when they do that. The other call out here too, and this is a very kind of important change that's been happening over the last couple of years. And Chip mentioned earlier that 40% of our users are using OfferUp to generate passive income. So when we talk to talk to car buyers on the platform, 55% of these users are actually selling their cars through OfferUp first, and then using that cash to go and actually purchase their next vehicle. So this is a fundamental shift, like in terms of like trade-ins versus selling the car. It kind of an accepted outcome that happens in these re-commerce marketplaces. That again, that is a kind of a natural extension of how people are fundamentally acting when they do this. So really important kind of learning there, just to understand that there's plenty of opportunities for dealers to capture that inventory, capture the trade-in, but it's also recognizing that they very may likely go sell their car on their own as well. So what does all of that mean? That's actually a ton of information. Happy to go deeper if anybody wants to reach out. Our car buyer survey is 50 questions long. It's very in-depth, very intensive for our people to go through, but we get a ton of learnings. And these are learnings that we share with our dealers within our Verified Dealer program. So these are things we want to give dealers every advantage and every opportunity to understand who's buying cars, what are they doing, how are they buying, what's important, so they can take advantage of that. As an opportunity in terms of looking forward, like a re-commerce marketplace, again, we've heard about reach, we've heard about the buyers. So what do we actually do? And I think foremost and fundamentally, there is no going back, right? You're seeing this continued growth in these re-commerce marketplaces. The reason for that is, again, pricing transparency. The customer is in control of the narrative and the conversation. They want on-demand everything, right? Again, tools, trucks, cars, clothing, video games, you name it. It's all there for people to access, right? And it gives dealers every opportunity to begin to brand outside of industry sites, right? And this is something where a lot of the feedback we get from our dealers is, well, I spend a lot of my money on Auto Trader, or I spend a lot of my money on KBB, but I don't see the results. Whereas in OfferUp, I'm getting high engagement. I'm selling cars every month, and again, it's kind of bringing these things together. So it's really about embracing kind of the new normal, and again, getting in and taking advantage of this user base, right? That's 20 million strong every single month to do that. And I think as an extension of that, recognizing again, re-commerce marketplaces are different. They're not a typical digital marketing platform. They're not a typical industry site. They're very different in terms of how users come and interact with you and experience. There's a pre-built experience that they're expecting as they come to you. So it's again recognizing that users and user experience. There's an expectation around how it's going to work, how they communicate with you. Is it mobile? Is it web? And again, coming back to sustainability, values driven is a key component. And working within re-commerce, this gives the dealers opportunity to build out their sustainability chops, right? We now are part of that ecosystem and can drive our brand and values as part of that as well. I just call it here again, mobile versus web-based. Again, a very heavy indication that people are moving to apps. So it's very important to understand that while websites, industry sites, websites, events, these kinds of things matter, but getting into the apps and getting into these marketplaces is a critical step, right, in terms of engaging with that audience as you do that. And then the last call out here is leverage the reach. So I think it's just stating the obvious for dealers, for anybody who's interested in reaching car shoppers. You can leverage the reach. There's volume, there's targeting, there's opportunities for inventory sourcing. It's obviously a huge used car market. Again, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cars every single month are being sold through the platform. And as part of that, and you think about that, again, it's about sustainability. Again, just leveraging that opportunity to be part of that ecosystem is a really important part of engaging with the audience. So you've got plenty of opportunity to come out and take advantage of that. So just to kind of quickly wrap up on that, again, this is just OfferUp. I think we've already covered most of the details on here, but OfferUp, it's a top 5 shopping app. 1 out of 5 adults are using OfferUp over the last year. So it's, again, plenty of reach for you guys to come and take advantage of that. That's it. I want to go ahead and take the opportunity to open up to questions.
Yeah, can you go back to the slide that had the growth that you're expecting by, I think it was 2027?
You bet.
I'm really interested in these aren't manufactured or new bodies, right? They're people that in the past were looking at different places for vehicles, and now or this market, and now it's moved over to these Recommerce, these apps, these sites. Where are they coming from? I mean, like what quite candidly, what are you cannibalizing? Is it in-store visits? Is it is it some of the other platforms out there? Where are these growth numbers going to come from?
Matt, you want me to jump in here?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of goes back to that. Just the whole dynamic of how people are shopping is evolving and changing, right? So from where it is coming from, you can just see kind of here within this chart of like what the traditional retail element looks like in terms of growth. And we continue to see that linear growth, but just albeit at a much smaller, in a much smaller segment. People have moved to online shopping as a more traditional way in which they are doing their daily buying and selling. And again, like the Recommerce element of that is a component of that exponential growth that we're starting to see, where again, a lot of it is just the change in shopping behavior, taken away from traditional businesses, the brick and mortar. But again, it is just how people are starting to be a little bit more cognizant of where their dollars are going and wanting to kind of be the owner of their own finances a little bit.
Yeah, I just if I'm a marketer, I'm looking at my total acquisition. What's my total spending for my marketing budget and how I allocate those resources to get as much as I can. And so it's interesting that this stuff is expected to grow exponentially, and it's coming from somewhere. And I don't know where, but it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, and just Bart, to add to that, I think one of the things you see in terms of like your cost per acquisition, your cost per lead, one of the things I can say definitively, right? Like a cost per lead, for example, on OfferUp compared to a traditional industry site, I won't name any specifics, but happy to share on a one-to-one. It's going to be 50 to 85% lower than what you would find on those traditional sites. Again, because we already have the audience, and we're able then to bring that audience to you based on, it could be search, it could be activity, could be something else. So it is a much lower spend in terms of getting to the right lead and being able to convert that. And secondly, I think on top of that, what you are seeing is traditional sites. I mean, obviously there's been some cannibalism from like Facebook Marketplace, for example, from Craigslist. A lot of ways you would say, OfferUp is a modern version of Craigslist, right? So you do see, like, again, as Craigslist, their market cap continues to go down, OfferUp continues to go up, right? And a lot of that has to do with the fact that OfferUp is able to deliver a more dynamic search experience, for example. So when you come and you list a vehicle, or you come and list a job, as an example, it's a dynamic experience. So when somebody searches for something like that, we're going to go ahead and show that listing to that user based on what they're trying to do, versus Craigslist, where it's very new. It's a classified, right? Like only the newest stuff shows at the top, and then it continues to go down. Whereas in our experience, it works differently. So we're able to be targeted and more cost conscious in terms of how those dollars are spent. So it's a great question, and happy to dive into that as if anybody's interested in diving in.
All right, that maybe is a great segue. Chip, do you have a slide that kind of shows your contact info? I don't know if you guys have that one. Why don't anybody that has any questions, reach out to these two. I'm sure they've got some answers for you and kind of what this market looks like and how to leverage it. In addition, you can reach out to us at any time if you want as well. We'll pass it over. But I want to thank you two for coming on and sharing some of these data. You guys had graphs, you had charts. It was good. Lots of data, lots of data. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate the time, and we hope to see you on future broadcasts. And Chip, Matt, thanks a lot.